Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your bro Rico from Street Scores, and man, I have some sort of bad news. It's not like breaking bad news or anything, but linebacker Cole Holcomb leaves Washington to go to the Steelers on a reported 3-year deal. We don't exactly know the numbers yet, but I'm very curious about the numbers. Like, I'm super like, man, I gotta know what they paid him, because that's gonna reflect how much we actually prioritize them. Like, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be cheaper than we thinking, and then we're gonna be looking at it like, oh, the Commanders could have just paid him that and we would have been straight, but it's definitely going to show how much of a priority he was for us to bring him back. And we're going to dive into everything Cole Holcomb. Would we lose by him going to the Steelers? Should we have done everything to retain him possible? Take a look at some of his stats. Also, of course, do we think Cody Barton is going to be his immediate replacement? And how much of a larger role Cody Barton is expected to have on this defense now that Cole Holcomb is guaranteed to not come back? Also, we got to take a look at a lot of the best free agent linebackers still available. A lot of them have been signed, including our Cole Holcomb, but there are still some guys out there that if we really want to fix the position in free agency before we get to the draft, we can do that. Also, speaking of the draft, who are some of the draft linebackers that we could potentially target in this upcoming 2023 NFL draft? Are any of them worthy of going in the first round, especially 16th overall? And if not, what are some of the rounds where we may be able to get some sleeper, high-impact linebackers that could come in and potentially even start day one to make up for the loss of a Cole Holcomb? But before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately, and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Sunday for the call-in live stream. We'll open up the phone lines every Sunday for y'all to call in, ask whatever questions you may have, voice your opinions on anything, start a debate topic, whatever. Stay tuned for all of the mock drafts I have coming out leading up to the draft. Stay tuned for anything draft content wise, film sessions. Stay tuned for everything free agency. You see that I've been updating y'all on every little thing. I have like 2 more videos I need to get done just today alone, so make sure y'all stay tuned. And without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so this all started when Tom Pelissero tweeted the Steelers have agreed to terms with former Commanders linebacker Cole Holcomb earlier this week on a 3-year deal pending physical per source. Now, you know, this is the tampering period. Free agency doesn't technically start until today, I believe, at like 4 p.m., which is why nobody can technically talk to Lamar Jackson without his agent until today at 4 p.m. So dominoes are going to start falling at 4 p.m. for sure. And speaking of 4 p.m. again, as far as Cole Holcomb goes, if for some reason he fails that physical, this deal could fall through. It's not pen to paper yet. Really, the only thing that we've done pen to paper is Deron Payne. Everybody we've signed so far has not been pen to paper just yet, except for like the Himmelman tackle that we signed a while ago because he didn't count. Everybody that we've signed since the start of the tampering period, those deals are not all the way through yet, and that includes this Cole Holcomb the Steelers situation. Maybe it ends up being like a J.D. McKissick situation where he planned on going to somebody else, going to some other team, and for one reason or another ends up back on the Commanders. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm not even saying it's likely, but you never know. But I've already accepted that he's gone. I'm not trying to rationalize him coming back in any way. I've already accepted Cole Holcomb at 26, who started 48 games for Washington, could potentially be a big addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, who may let Devin Bush go ahead and dip out. And we're going to talk about Devin Bush later, of course, when we get the free agent linebackers that are available. But Cole Holcomb was a pretty good linebacker. He wasn't the greatest. He wasn't a Pro Bowler, but he was really good for what we expected out of him being a 5th round pick. Felt like he gave us great value there, especially for as cheap as his contracts have been with him playing on his rookie deal. And it sucks too, because him getting hurt in a contract year definitely lowered his asking price for us and other teams. He definitely got paid less in this 2023 offseason because he spent most of the 2022 season hurt, because he had a pretty good year 2021, and I thought if anything he was just going to keep getting better and better and potentially maybe become that Pro Bowl level linebacker. Based on what he did in the 2021 season, he was on that trajectory. He didn't reach that Pro Bowl status yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the Steelers and ends up playing really well. But then at the same time, we're going to talk about this a little bit later when talking about Cody Barton and potential free agent linebackers that we may want to bring in. Cole Holcomb was as great as he was, and some of it was because of him, of course. A lot of it was because of him. But also on the other side, a lot of it was because of him playing behind the best defensive line in football, at the very least one of the best. At the very least, the best defensive tackle duo in football in Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. So I'm really interested in seeing how productive he is for the Steelers, whose defensive line is not as good as ours. So I'm not trying to say, Cole Holcomb, we made you. How dare you leave us? But I do want to make people aware of the fact that Cole Holcomb's job job was way easier because of the defensive line he was playing behind. But I still do think he'll go to the Steelers and be pretty productive, and I feel like they're going to be happy getting him. But it's obvious that this more than likely wasn't going to happen. First of all, once we signed Daron Payne to a long-term deal, and he was eating up all of that future cap space, 2023-wise, we saved cap space by doing it, but long-term-wise, paying Daron Payne did hurt our chances in bringing back everybody that we wanted to bring back. And the Commanders have already said that they're interested in bringing back Tyler Larson, F.L. Bada, Jeremy Reeves, a lot of guys. Potentially extending Cameron Curl's contract to a long-term deal, maybe even go ahead and get Curtis Samuel out the way if we can. Doubt it this offseason, but those are options. Those are all guys that we potentially need to pay within the next year. So the writing was on the wall already once we re-signed Daron Payne long-term, because there's only a limited amount of people you're going to do that for. And then on top of that, we signed Cody Barton to a fully guaranteed deal. It's not a heavy cap space hitter. It's like less than $4 million, I believe, but it's still fully guaranteed, and you're expecting this guy to contribute. It's like a 1-year cheap prove-it deal, but the way that we signed him and the way that the contract looks, it looks like we're expecting him to potentially start, especially now that Cole Holcomb is gone. But before we get into that, I mean, again, Cole Holcomb, it sucks because he played in all 16 games. His rookie season started in 15 of them. Then he got hurt in 2020, started in 10 games, played in 11. And then 2021, he started in and played in every game. So he's never really had injury concerns like that until he sustained that injury that pretty much took him out the entire season last year, at least more than half of it. So I wouldn't label him an injury-prone player, but it does suck going into your contract year getting hurt like that. Definitely messed up his money. And again, going back to that 2021 season, which you can say is easily his best season of his career. In 16 starts, he had 142 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, and 1 fumble recovery. It was a great season, man. I'm not gonna lie. It had me really hyped about his potential for this team. But then even going into the 2022 season before he got hurt, he wasn't looking as good as his 2021 self. So I don't want to say it was a fluke, but it was a little weird. But again, Cody Barton now with Cole Holcomb gone becomes an integral part of this defense. I mean, we're pretty much expecting him to step up and start now, because there's no way you're expecting Khaleke Hudson to start just yet after only 1 good game against the Cowboys. There's no way we're expecting David Mayo to start after really no good games against anybody. And then Jamin Davis is getting better and better, but he's still learning. And he looked good at times being the only linebacker on the field because we just had nobody else serviceable to play. John Bostic and David Mayo, we pretty much avoided throwing them on the field as much as possible. So there was some plays where Jamin Davis was the only linebacker on the field, 5 defensive linemen and 5 DBs. And he looked pretty good doing it, but I don't want to depend on Jamin Davis being fully healthy for an entire season as our only quality linebacker. So Cody Barton has to step up. I think we're going to definitely dip our toe into some more free agency options and maybe even some draft stuff. But as of right now, Cody Barton and Jamin Davis are our 2 highest linebackers on our depth chart, and that makes me very nervous. Now, Cody Barton wise, love his ceiling, but not a fan of his floor. I feel like Mark Bullock with this full film breakdown on Cody Barton. Make sure you go subscribe to his Substack and everything. I'm just gonna read to you his final paragraph, his overall description for him, and I completely agree based on what I've seen from his film so far. I haven't had a chance to actually watch Mark Bullock's film breakdown yet. I've just looked at Seahawks tape. I just literally went to the article and scrolled straight down to see how he felt overall, like literally just the last conclusive paragraph. And this is what he had to say, and again, I fully agree. Overall, Barton is an intriguing signing for the Commanders that should be able to contribute pretty significantly this season. He's another very athletic, rangy linebacker that fits the mold of linebackers that Ron Rivera has favored during his time in Washington with the likes of Cole Holcomb and Jamin Davis. But he also displays some solid instincts against the run, which is very notable. He should benefit significantly from playing behind this Commanders defensive line, so whatever he did for the Seahawks, we can at the very least expect him to be as good as that or better with us with the defensive line that we have in front of him. Continuing from Mark Bullock's article, which should keep him cleaner than the Seahawks were able to last season, I agree. And his athleticism leads to him having some upside in coverage too. He should round out the linebacker room, especially if Holcomb is re-signed, which he wasn't. So now, not necessarily saying it's time to panic, but Cody Barton, it's time to step up big time. But his presence means they don't have to overpay Holcomb coming off his injury if they don't want to, and that's exactly what happened. The Commanders believe in Cody Barton's potential to the point that maybe they were at a certain number with Cole Holcomb, and Cole Holcomb wanted more, and they were like, well, we're not budging, because when in doubt, we could just go with Cody Barton. Maybe we bring in another free agent, maybe we draft a guy. But it seems like they're okay with, if Jamin Davis and Cody Barton are your starting top 2 linebackers going into the season, they're okay with that. I'm not as a fan of the Commanders, but that's how the Commanders feel right now. And basically, to sum summarize it, no, today he's not as good or productive as Cole Holcomb. When he's at his best, he's clearly better than Cole Holcomb, but he's not as consistent as Cole Holcomb, which is why he's not as productive as Cole Holcomb. But if we're talking about ceiling, the ceiling is way higher than Cole Holcomb's. The floor is a little bit lower, but I would say the difference in their floors isn't as big as the difference in their ceilings. I feel like if Cole Holcomb's ceiling is here, Cody Barton's ceiling is like around here. Like he's that much of an athlete. He flashes that much on tape. But if Cole Holcomb's floor is here, I feel like Cody Barton's floor is like right here underneath him. So overall, Cody Barton is a more intriguing prospect, but Cole Holcomb is easily safer. You know exactly how he fits into the defense because you've seen it. You see how he works with Jamin Davis. You see how he responds to Jack Del Rio's coaching. Cody Barton, all of those are question marks. But of course, yes, his ceiling is higher. Cody Barton, if you're only looking at highlight tapes and not looking at film and looking at every snap, he looks like the better linebacker easier. That's where that ceiling comes from. That's where that potential comes from. But again, Cole Holcomb is far more consistent and has far more questions answered than a Cody Barton. So we'll see. This could end up paying off big time. Cody Barton for cheaper, and he ends up being a better player. That could be a huge come up. We've questioned Jack Del Rio signing J.D. McKissick, Logan Thomas, Charles Leno, a lot of these guys, and they've typically ended up working out pretty well for us, at the very least for one season. Charles Leno in 2021, I felt like was really good, other than that first quarter when Ryan Fitzpatrick got killed against the Chargers. J.D. McKissick has been great for us whenever he hasn't been hurt or tripping on his own shoestrings on the field. Logan Thomas was really good 2021. It seemed like a lot of that fell under in 2022. J.D. McKissick getting hurt, Charles Leno being inconsistent, Logan Thomas looking like a shell of himself. But whenever Ron Rivera has made these bargain bin signings, these guys have outperformed their contracts and have played beyond their cap hit numbers. So I'm never really mad at those things. I want some splash signings as well, but these bargain bin signings that Rivera has made since he's been here have helped the team for sure. And a lot of these guys have ended up with second contracts. And I wouldn't be surprised if Cody Barton follows suit. But at the end of the day, man, Cole Holcomb was a 5th round pick. And if at the very least I can trust them to find another 5th round linebacker that can do the same thing, if not maybe a 3rd or a 4th rounder. We'll get to that later. But again, Cole Holcomb was a 5th round pick, and it's not like teams around the NFL were fighting to get him, so it is a loss for us. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. Losing Cole Holcomb does suck for us, but again, ultimately, Cody Barton could end up being the better player. I can see a lot of scenarios where he does end up being better. Maybe not as consistent, but if we're talking about flashes, if we're talking about covering a slot receiver on a slot fade, if we're talking about blowing up a run play right at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield, Cody Barton has the brighter flashes and the highest ceiling easily. But any given snap, he might look like, why is he even on the team type of thing. So it's going to be a roller coaster ride. It's going to be fun. But Grant Paulson had a good analysis of this Cole Holcomb situation because he said Washington looks like they're not going to spend legit money on linebackers. Since going heavily to a 4-2-5, look, they care way less about the position. They value defensive line and DBs way more. And it makes Jamin Davis in the first round even more odd. I was thinking the same thing as well. I mean, we clearly do not value linebacker that much. They feel like it's the last thing they need to worry about. Maybe not even just on defense, but the entire team. They're like, we'll just get somebody that can fill in at linebacker and figure it out, because when in doubt, our defensive line is going to be dominant and our secondary is really athletic and improving. We'll figure out linebacker at the end of the day. So at some point, they clearly don't prioritize making sure the linebacker spot has a premier player. It was reported that we were interested in David Long, so I got a little bit of hope that maybe they would, but once the Dolphins signed him for how much they signed him for, I'm assuming that we must have been lowballing him. And I'm really disappointed in that because he was arguably my favorite free agent option regardless of position. I'm really sad that we lost that. But yeah, the Commanders basically just feel like they can get by at the linebacker spot and this defense can still be dominant. You just need a guy that can move fast and be athletic. So they probably even have high hopes and expectations for even like a Khaleke Hudson, who's only really given us one good game. It happened to be the final game of the 2022 season against the Cowboys, just like Sam Howell, just like Percy Butler, just like Chris Paul at left guard. If we're basing our future decisions on how well those guys played against the Cowboys, it may be a little bit premature, but it would be nice if all of those guys continue to be as good as they were against the Cowboys moving forward, because then we should be really straight. Khaleke Hudson is as good moving forward at linebacker as he looked against the Cowboys. Jamin Davis, Cody Barton, and Khaleke Hudson should be a really good linebacker trio for us, but I'm not banking on it. And then John Keim reported this morning before Cole Holcomb went to the Steelers that Washington would like to sign another linebacker. They preferred to re-sign Cole Holcomb, but they they remain apart with the money. So there was a gap between how much they were willing to give him and how much he wanted. I'm assuming the Steelers gave him that. But outside of a couple of top linebackers, the money would need to be more modest. A lot of good choices, and it's lessen the need to spend really big for the rest. So what's really interesting from this report from John Keim is the fact that they are still interested in getting some linebacker in free agency. This is after the Cody Barton signing. So it sounds like they do want to get somebody before the draft, and they preferred for it to be Cole Holcomb, but they didn't want to pay Cole Holcomb a certain amount of money. But again, they want somebody that's currently not on the Commanders yet. And he also said outside of a couple top linebackers, the money will have to be more modest. So does that mean that we're interested in some of the top linebackers like a Bobby Wagner potentially? I don't know. But John Keim did point out the fact that there are quite a few good linebacker choices out there if we still do want to bring in another one, which we more than likely would. But it's probably just going to be another bargain bin type of guy, or like a cheap one-year prove-it deal, kind of like Cody Barton. Which takes me to who are the best linebackers left? I mean, you have Bobby Wagner, you have Levante David. Both of those guys are older and probably demanding more money than we're willing to give them, but who knows? That could probably go into the category of willing to pay a linebacker more money if they're that good, according to John Keim. You have Drew Tranquill, Denzel Perryman, you have Devin Bush. And I would be willing, I mean, he's going to be 26 this upcoming season. And behind this defensive line, give him a one-year prove-it deal extremely cheap. And I think he can end up balling out. He can become what a lot of people thought he would become for the Steelers, potentially for us. And if you just have all of these athletic freaks at linebacker, Jamin Davis, Cody Barton, and Devin Bush just flying around while the defensive line is being dominant, and the secondary is also very athletic, and they're all getting comfortable and communicating better. We don't have as many holes in the defense and communication issues. I think we could be fine. I would love to bring in a premier certified Pro Bowl level linebacker, but it doesn't look like that's very likely. So if you just give me a bunch of athletic freaks that can fly around and we don't have to worry about a lack of speed like David Mayo and John Bostic, I'll take it. I'm sorry. I'll take that chance. I would prefer to go get a Bobby Wagner for whatever money he's asking for, honestly. But I highly doubt that happens. So I need to just go ahead and move on and accept the fact that that will not happen. But you also have Anthony Walker Jr., Corey Littleton. You have guys out there. Quan Alexander, if anybody wants to take a chance on him. Gerard Davis again. I know his name always comes up every offseason. But Devin Bush, Spot Track has him estimated to earn a market value of $3 million per year. So we could probably get him for that or maybe even cheaper. But they're estimating, because they don't only just do average value, they try to guess exactly what contract they'll get next in general, and they think he'll get a one-year $3 million deal, which is very similar to Cody Barton's, and I'd be willing to do that. If we're just talking pure potential and talent, actually my fault, he's going to be 25 this upcoming season. He's 24 right now. He'll be 26 by the time his contract ends and we need to re-sign him long term. But if we're talking about athleticism, potential, and pure talent, there was a reason he was drafted 10th overall in the 2019 draft. And I'm willing to give him a chance because, again, the Steelers' defensive line is not as good as the Commanders. So if Devin Bush can figure it out anywhere, it's with us. And I love how Jamin Davis developed from how bad and raw he was to start out his rookie season to what he is now. So I believe in Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera to get greatness out of our linebackers potentially. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, maybe we want to draft a linebacker, maybe within the first 3 rounds. Now, I feel like 16th overall is way too early for any linebacker in this draft. Honestly, Trenton Simpson is probably the safest linebacker in this draft, and I wouldn't take him 16th overall. I'm not even exactly sure if I would take him in the first round. I'm not high on this linebacker class at all. But one guy I'm very high on, if you've seen me talk about him several times, live streams, mock drafts, videos over and over again, my boy, linebacker Dayon Henley, who's estimated to potentially go in the 2nd or 3rd round. He's a first round talent that you may be able to get out of the first round because his first 3 years of college, he was a wide receiver. He moved to linebacker his senior year, the year before he's about to go into the draft. Very risky move, but it looks like it paid off. Most people, it doesn't. 9 times out of 10, probably even more than that, it doesn't work out. But he flashed so much and so often. And like, if you only look just like Cody Barton, if you're only looking at the good plays and not looking at the negative, just a highlight reel, you'd be like, why is this guy not the best linebacker in this class? So of course he comes with a few young mistakes with his inexperience, only playing linebacker for 1 full year of his entire life, let alone at the college level. And then he plans on doing that at the NFL level. He's gonna come with some bumps in the road. throw. He's gonna make some mistakes. But if we're talking about pure talent and athleticism and potential, you could argue Deion Henley has the highest ceiling out of any linebacker in this class. And again, if you're only looking at a highlight reel, you would probably say Deion Henley is the best linebacker in this class that way as well. So I would love to get him. And then the fact that the Commanders are actually interested in him and actually met with them formally at the combine has me very excited about our opportunity and chances of taking him in the draft. And again, he may make it to the third, but I may not even risk it and taking him in the second, especially if we like trade back and get an additional third round pick, like a higher one instead of that compensatory one that we have. I'm taking him as soon as possible outside of the first round. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Let me know how you feel about Cole Holcomb leaving, who we potentially have to replace him on roster, including Cody Barton, who we could potentially replace him with in free agency or in the draft. Let me know how you feel about this entire situation. And of course, man, please leave a like on this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, let me know how you feel about everything. I appreciate all the support. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.